Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
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 Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So we continue reading from our Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Ādi-līlā, chapter 2, entitled Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And today's verses are 63 to 65, and 65 has the purport, so I will just recite through 63 and 64, and then we'll recite 65 together. Like that. So 63. Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagvaniti shabhyate. So translation is, learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth say that it is non-dual knowledge and is called impersonal Brahman, the localized Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead. This text is from, this is the purport, this text is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 11. Text 64. Shunobhai shloka karai vichara eka mukhya tattvatina tahare prachara. Translation. My dear brothers, kindly listen to the explanation of this verse and consider its meaning. The original entity is known in his three different features. And so we'll recite the 65 together. Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa. Brahma Atma Bhagavan Tina Tanra Rupa.
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 Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan Tina Tanra Rupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan Tina Tanra Rupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishna Swarupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan Tina Tanra Rupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishna Swarupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan Tanra Rupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan
Tina Tanra Rupa. Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishnera Swarupa.
Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishna Swarupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan Tina Tanra Rupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan. Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishna Swarupa.
Brahma Atma Bhagavan Tina Tanra Rupa.
Brahma Atma
Bhagavan Tina Tanra
Rupa. Advaya Jnana Tattva Vastu Krishna Swarupa. for word. Advaya Jnana, knowledge without duality.
Knowledge without duality.
Tattvavastu, the absolute truth. Krishnera, of the Lord Krishna. Swarupa, own nature. Brahma, Brahman. Atma, Paramatma. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tina, three. Tanre, of Him. Rupa, forms. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Lord Krishna Himself is the one undivided absolute truth, the ultimate reality. He manifests Himself in three features as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Purport. In the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam cited above, Bhagavatam 1-11, the principal word Bhagavan indicates the personality of Godhead, and Brahman and Paramatma are concomitants deduced from the absolute personality. As a government and its ministers are deductions from the supreme executive head. In other words, the principal truth is exhibited in three different features. The absolute truth, the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna Bhagavan, is also known as Brahman and Paramatma, although all these features are identical. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Pancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I seek blessings of all the Vaishnavas assembled here, all the seniors, and all the devotees here at Brooklyn Temple, New York, and ask your permission to help me or keep me honest and help me to deliver this exalted text that we're reading from both actually Caitanya-caritāmṛta today as well as Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's a combined text today. So this verse, these verses, Srila Prabhupada presented or rather represents the Srimad Bhagavatam, that is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and He exists in His three features. Before we start unpacking this further, I wanted to just recap that we have wonderful texts like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Caitanya-caritāmṛta, and what are their sort of main content, main purposes. Now, most of you would know that, but some who are sort of fairly new to this process may not exactly know that. So I've taken the liberty of taking the explanations from Caitanya-caritāmṛta compact by His Holiness Swami Bhagavan Keshav Swami. Maharaj explains very nicely with a diagram that Bhagavad Gita, Shri Radha Govinda Dev Ji ki, Giraj Maharaj ki, Gauritai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. He says Bhagavad Gita is a foundational study and the content are the words of Krishna. It's the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and it begins with The famous verse, "You are not this body, you are an eternal soul." Dehinosmin yatha dehe is 2:13. And then Bhagavad Gita sort of ends with, "Abandon all varieties of religion, sarvadharman parityaga," 1866. And so the way the texts are presented by Srila Prabhupada, it really dovetails them together. So then, as Bhagavad Gita ends, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the graduate study, the activities of Krishna, begins with reject all cheating religions and get to the essence, which is bhakti. So Srimad Bhagavatam 112 starts with that. And the content of the Bhagavatam is the character and pastimes of Krishna and his devotees, like that. And then Bhagavatam ends with chanting the holy names is the means to destroy all sinful reactions. Isn't it? So isn't it nice? You can see how it then dovetails from Bhagavad Gita into Bhagavatam, and then Caitanya-caritāmṛta begins. Caitanya-caritāmṛta is the postgraduate study. It begins, which is the mind of Krishna, and it begins the process of how will I come, or I have come to teach you the process of chanting by practicing it myself. So you see, so it's a nice sort of progression. As you go through the study, it takes you from your undergraduate study, your graduate study, and then your postgraduate study, like that, your master's and your postgraduate study. So it's a very nice way that it starts and it begins and ends. And then Caitanya-caritāmṛta actually ends with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgetting himself throughout the entire day and night, being merged in the ocean of ecstatic love for Krishna. And so that way, we get to understand how our journey in this specific human form of life can take. We understand the philosophy through Bhagavad Gita. We understand the character and pastimes of Krishna and his devotees through Bhagavatam. And we understand the process and practice of devotional service through Caitanya-caritāmṛta, like that. So then, in today's verses, we are very, very fortunate that we actually finally come and understand this very, very long-awaited verse that devotees have been asking for, Srimad Bhagavatam verse 1 to 11 itself, like that. So we actually read the verse already, but I'll just mention it. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmati paramatmeti bhagwan iti shabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, like that. And so these are the three key features of this absolute truth. And it is explained in the first sloka of the first chapter. This is part of the purport I'm just reciting here. That the Bhagwan, Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Truth, is a self-effulgent, self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from illusion and all relativity. In this relative world, the knower is different from the known, isn't it? In the material world, the knower is different from the known. But in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known is the same. They are the one of the same personality. The relative world, the knower is the living spirit or the superior energy, whereas the known is the inert matter or inferior energy, like that. And therefore, there is duality of inferior and superior energies. Whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are exactly the same, i.e. the supreme superior energy. And there are three kinds of energy of the supreme energetic, which we know. Do you know the three kinds of energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Yes.
Internal, external, and marginal.
Wonderful, yes. Antaranga or Hladini, Swarup Shakti, Bahiranga or Maya, or Tatashta Jiva Shaktis. Thank you, very nice. So there is no difference between the energy and the energetic of the Lord, but there is a difference in the quality of energies. So therefore, in these verses, there is also another very famous verse that has been quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam, and the translation of that is for those who are wandering in the material universe, there is no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed at in the direct devotional service of Lord Krishna. And so the way Keshav Swami also explains in the book Bhagavad, as well as this Gita life course that I'm currently doing, is that it's like if somebody was to describe what a train is. There was a sage, he asked his 3 students to go and describe what is a train. So one student decided, okay, I'll go early in the morning when it's quiet so I can actually focus and see what the train is all about. So he goes and he stands at a distance from the station he was asked to go, and then he sees something coming in the distance, and he sees a bright light, and he says, okay, wow, look, that's the train. That is it. I'm going to write it down. This is the train. It looks like this is round, big, bright light. And he goes back to the sage and says, yes, I found out what the train is. The train is the big, bright light that comes to the station every day. And that is the train. And the sage goes, thank you very much. That's very nice. And then the next student goes, next day, okay, what is the train? Let me find out. So he goes closer to the station, and the train's coming. And then he waits. The bright light is there, and he waits. And he sees, okay, the train is the bright light, but it also is the carriage, the main first carriage that pulls the other carriages along. So the train is the bright light as well as the other carriages. And he goes back to the sage and says, yes, the train is the bright light and the other carriages, like that. And the sage goes, nice, thank you very much. So it's not just the bright light, but it's also the carriages. And then the 3rd student goes across and says, okay. And the 3rd student was a little bit more inquisitive. He was always asking the questions, why? He always wanted to know why. What's the purpose? So he said, okay, well, let me find out, what is the train all about? So he goes really close to the station. He sees the bright light. He sees the carriage that pulls all the other carriages. He sees that people are coming in and out of the train. They're taking their luggage, etc., all of these things. And so, okay, so this train is actually the light, the engine, the carriages, and then people go. And it's actually a mode of transfer where people go from one place to another, like that. And so similarly, the sage says, yes, that is really the complete answer that I've got. So our understanding of these 3 features of the Lord is in the same way. If we are trying to have Brahman realization, we obviously, yes, we can look at just the Brahman realization and be satisfied with the impersonal Brahman and the effulgent of the Lord. But after that, well, what is there more? That's it? That's it? It can't be just that. There is not just impersonal Brahman. It isn't just something that pulls the carriage. So obviously there is a Paramatma feature, Paramatma realization, which is a good realization by any means. But actually, as we know, the Bhagwan realization is the full realization of the entire journey of our spiritual life. So ideally, this is what we want to get to. The means of Jnana Yoga, the means of Karma Yoga will only get you so far. But obviously, what we know is our process is as Bhakti Yoga, yes. Bhakti Yoga is our process, devotional practice to Krishna consciousness. And also in the Bhagavad Gita, verse 12-15, it is said that those who are attached to the impersonal feature of the absolute truth are liable to many troubles in pursuit of the desired goal. And the empiricist philosophers searching after the absolute truth realize the importance of Vasudeva realization as all in all after many, many births. So again, when you try to only realize the impersonal Brahman, you're going to get frustrated because our nature is to be Satchitananda, right? Is to be eternal, blissful, as well as all-knowing. And so if we are that character, then our understanding of just the impersonal Brahman is not going to satisfy us. And therefore also as the empirical philosophers realize that concerning only the absolute truth in the Vasudeva form takes many, many births. But the mystics or those who are practicing the specific instruction of the Bhagavad Gita 1866 advises the full surrender unto the Lord. Sarva dharman parityaga mam ekam sharanam vraja. And so that way, we engage, leaving aside all other engagements and different processes for self-realization or liberation from material bondage. We actually understand through the Vedic literatures, one that induces us to practice devotional practice in a way that is conducive. So, Sridhar Swami and other acharyas like Jiva Goswami, other Bhakta yogis, describe the nature of God. They say that after lifetimes of frustrated attempts at finding happiness in this material world, what happens, the living entity, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, Satchitananda, begins to finally do a serious search of the absolute truth. And when we come to that point is when we actually really get to know the impersonal Brahman feature of Bhagwan, the Paramatma feature of Bhagwan, but actually we come to the platform of surrendering to the Bhagwan feature of Bhagwan, the absolute truth, Krishna. And when we come to that platform, that's when we start wondering, hang on, what is it that is to know Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And then we come to the platform of the question that we then can ask, how am I supposed to re-establish my original relationship with that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna? And so we are so fortunate that Srila Prabhupada actually gave us the whole process in a nutshell, in a day-to-day activity. Starts with the Mangal Arati, we get to glorify the Lord, we get to sing and dance, and here the energy is very, very high. When there's Samsara Dava going on at the front, in the middle there's dancing going on, there's jumping around going on, there's varieties of activity, morning exercise happens, right? So after all, before breakfast we have to do morning exercise. So not only do we have morning exercise, but we also at the same time producing devotional service to Krishna. That is joyfully performed, isn't it? And so as the day goes along, we get to understand, okay, how can I now relate to the Lord through personal meditation? Let's get into the japa, let's get into the individual sort of telephone call with Krishna. Hello Krishna, ring ring, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hello, is Krishna there? Can I speak to him? And sometimes what happens? Is Krishna there? It's like this sometimes, isn't it? So we try to understand the potency of our relationship with him. But in between, before that, we actually also cry out to Tulsi Maharani to say, give me that Krishna Bhakti, give me the opportunity to serve in the pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham, so that I can also behold the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And so that way, we start to establish this long-lost relationship. We go away from our material body, which is a giver of suffering, kleshada. At the same time, the material body is also known as arthada, great benefit, giver of great benefit. Kleshada and arthada, contradictions in term. The body also gives us pain, but is also the great vehicle. How is that? Why is the body great difficulty? Okay, it's a perfect vehicle for getting pain, isn't it? It is known it's a perfect vehicle for getting pain. Because actually, if you look at pain and pleasure, pleasure is only the momentary absence of pain. How much pain can you give to this body versus how much pleasure can you actually give it? Can you give pleasure to the tip of your little finger or your earlobe? I mean, what are you going to do with it? Okay? But if you punch your nose or damage your earlobe, it's going to hurt, isn't it? So it's a perfect vehicle for getting pain, kleshada. But in the same vehicle, we can actually approach our dear Lord. We can actually connect with Krishna. We can actually utilize our energy that is driven by this very tiny, tiny soul that is driving this entire body to surrender to the Lord. And therefore, we can start to experience the various pastimes that are there with Krishna. So just to recap a little bit, the karmis would look at this material world, look at the material world, trying to enjoy it, trying to load it over in material nature. But they are actually looking for the right thing in the wrong place. They are in this temporary, miserable, dukkhalayam ashashvatam world, isn't it? They're in the process of whereby the so-called principle of religious life that contains under this category within the spiritual literatures is like is seen as God is the cosmic order supplier. The cosmic order supplier, someone to approach in the times of need and want. My dear Lord, give me my daily bread. But actually, when you come to the path of Gyan, then the Gyanis look away from the world. After being frustrated from becoming karmis, they are then looking away from the world, trying to understand, okay, I failed at many, many attempts to load it over the material nature. Let me try and understand, what is it to be away from the world? And so what they start to do is they start to have this so-called world where communication is wireless, politics is shameless, people are jobless, desires are endless, and then they conclude that everything is actually useless, isn't it? And so therefore, they develop this sense of detachment and desire to escape this material world away from it. This is known, they know it as Brahman. They say, okay, well, away from the world is only bright light. There's nothing. So therefore, this must be our end destination. But actually, the bhakti yogis, they come to the platform, they look at not at the world, not away from the world, but beyond the world. If you look beyond the world, there is a bridge leading to a true home that actually allows us to understand and appropriately engage ourselves in the pleasure-seeking purpose for serving our dear most Lord Sri Krishna. In a form of yukta vairagya, of taking everything that is given to us in this material world and serving His Lordship, it allows us to understand the real purpose of sense gratification. Because sense gratification, our senses are more enjoyed and better utilized when we serve each other, when we serve others. And so in that service mood, because ultimately if we're not going to serve God, we're going to serve dog, like Prabhupada says, right? Or we're going to serve our society, our children, our families, our boss, and even that dog-master relationship. Who is the real master? Who is the real master in that dog-master relationship? The dog. Because ultimately we have to serve the dog, we have to take a little pooper scooper and get his poop out and put it in the bin. We have to go out to work to pay for the goods that the dog actually enjoys. And the dog is just happy. Yes, I am free and you serve me. So we may as well take this precious human form of life in the earthly realm, which is a unique opportunity to expand and experience or perfect our spirituality. In this age where Krishna as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reveals the joyful process of chanting Harinam Sankirtan, all the obstacles, all the issues, all the complexities are easily overcome simply by this process of Harinam Sankirtan. And through distribution of books, precious books of Srila Prabhupada, and doing kirtan that we do here so nicely in New York every single day for so many hours, it just pleases the heart and gives you the ability to expand our original state. And so we come to the platform of being completely joyful. Prabodhananda Saraswati explains in his Caitanya-caritāmṛta, verse 5, for a devotee, the pleasure of merging into the existence of Brahman is considered hellish. Similarly, he considers promotion to heavenly planets just another kind of phantasmagoria. The yogis meditate for sense control, but for the devotee, senses appear like serpents with broken teeth. The whole material world appears joyful for a devotee, and even great personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Indra are considered no better than insects. This is Prabodhananda Saraswati talking. I'm not saying it. Such is the position of a devotee who has received but a small glance of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unto this most magnanimous personality, I offer my respectful obeisances. So isn't it nice that through this process we start to understand the original state that we actually belong in. And through that platform, the fun really begins, the joy really begins. For example, we start to then relish the Damodar Ashtakam and the whole pastime of how this toddler Krishna is bound by Mother Yashoda, is relished by His Divine Grace Satyvrata Muni, who wrote this Ashtakam. Lashat kundalam gokule brajamanam. Even the shark-shaped earrings have a very personal relationship with Krishna. Then how can I imagine to experience that myself? The Acharyas comment that other ornaments which had adorned Krishna's body during this pastime, like bracelets, armlets, ankle bells, necklace, etc., were all envious of these earrings. Why were they envious? Because Krishna was running from the stick of Mother Yashoda. And this Lasat Kundalam, as he was running, they were swinging to and fro, and they were stealing kisses from Krishna's cheeks as they were running. And so all the other ornaments were looking at these earrings thinking, oh, you rascals, how are you able to do so much kissing with Krishna? What austerities have you done that you are able to steal these kisses with Krishna? And so you see, Satyvrata Muni is relishing, and the Acharyas are relishing really this pastime of how Krishna is so magnanimous in his approach. He is even letting Mother Yashoda bind him. I mean, this whole pastime is described in there's a Acharya, Sri Vallabha Acharya. He has 12 different reasons he's cited as to why this whole pastime appeared of Damodar Ashtakam. Why did Krishna suddenly decide, okay, I want to be bound by my mother in this way? I mean, it's a bit of a shameful pastime, no? Krishna is caught stealing, and then to shame him, he's going to be bound to the wooden grinding mortar, its accomplice. I mean, it's not really glorious, is it? So why would he do it? So there are 12 different reasons that are given. I'm not going to go through all of those 12, but you can see the relishing nature of understanding Krishna so much when we come to this platform as a devotee. These things are open. They are not open to those who are impersonalists. They are not open to those who just want to gain knowledge for the sake of gaining knowledge, or the mystic yogis. They are only open to the pure, unalloyed devotees, like Srila Prabhupada. And so Srila Prabhupada gave us this wonderful process to be able to enjoy exactly that. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only left us 8 verses. And within those 8 verses, he says, Trinadapi sunichena taroriva sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One who is more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, is able to chant the holy names of the Lord. Also talks about humility, also talks about all of these aspects. But the point is, when we come to that platform, when we remove all the conditioning of this material world, what then happens is we can come to the platform of where these acharyas are at. And that's why we can sing the songs like Narottam Das Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur that we sung at Guru Puja just now by wonderful Hadaya Pran Prabhu. We can then start relishing the purport of these bhajans and the songs like that. So yes, like that, there are unlimited relishable pastimes of the Lord that we can completely lose ourselves indefinitely and in complete bliss like that. So just in summary, I'm conscious of the time, we talked about the purpose and the content of our wonderful text, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and Caitanya-caritāmṛta, as the foundational study, graduate study, and postgraduate study, respectively. The Lord, in these three features, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, and we understood that these, by the respective natures of the three features, concluded that the path of Bhakti Yoga to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the topmost. We looked at the nature of God, Bhagwan, and then followed up with how to interact with the world in three different paths, at, away, and beyond. And finally, we concluded by coming to the platform of Bhagwan, realization in the most joyful as realized by the closest associates of the Lord, and how through the dedicated and focused practice of Krishna consciousness, we can also eventually come to this platform. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you, dear devotees, for listening to me going on, and thank you to Keshava Swami for giving me some material and all these other personalities. So if you have any sort of inputs to add, any questions, any things to further enhance our understanding, then yeah, please ask. No. Any questions? Anything to add? No? Really? Okay. Granth. Okay. Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for class. We were talking about the three aspects of the Supreme Personality.
Do we have a mic? Okay, we're talking about the three aspects.
We're talking about the three aspects of the Supreme Person, and oftentimes when distributing books, I come across people who are of another faith, another religious practice, and talking about God as this, impersonal Brahman feature of God, as like the all-in-all, like that's it. How do you kind of break through with someone like that, explaining the bottom aspect of being the highest?
Wonderful, nice question. So when you come across some personalities out when you're on Sankirtan and Harinam, and their understanding of God is this impersonal feature, how do you then explain to them what is the personal Bhagwan feature of God? Yeah, nice question, thank you. I'll ask others to also comment, but immediate thoughts that come to mind is to understand that it depends on their faith. As we know, in Christianity, it is said that God made man in his feature, in his personality, in his form. So that means that if you are praying to God, if you are saying, "My dear Lord, give me this," that means He's hearing. He must have an ear. So if He has an ear, that means that ear must be attached to something, like the head, like ours is. So then He has ears. That means if He has a head, then He must have a body. So therefore, in that way, you see where I'm going. So you can sort of unpack it like that. Or the other way of saying, yes, in Christianity even says that actually there is a form of the Lord, and that's how all of us have been created. And so there is definitely a personality. If there's a person, then there's got to be a personality. From a scientific point of view, if there's a creation, there's got to be a creator. Isn't it? Because nothing is created by itself. Okay, there is this Big Bang theory somewhere, but again, that's just a theory. Nobody's even proved it in the scientific world. So therefore, there's many angles you can approach this sort of question. But it all depends on it's a conversation you're having with them. And in that conversation, it actually reveals what their real understanding is. And then that way you can guide the conversation accordingly. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I think. Hare Krishna. Yeah, please.
There were some devotees who released a book that I think they were actually Muslim scholars before they became devotees.
Wow.
And they released a book called Hidden Secrets of Al-Quran. And then there they go through the Lord Chaitanya's conversation with the Patana Muslims. They ended up becoming devotees. And basically it just has like a few statements, a few verses explaining what Lord Chaitanya did. But then these devotees put like all the quotations from the Quran and explanations of like how you can actually fully explain what Lord Chaitanya was explaining. And in there it's talking about the body, and there's many statements in the Quran like, you know, Allah has like a foot or the throne of God, like you're saying the ear or the eyes of God, the mouth of God. It's like it's explaining all these things that eventually we understand is actually God is a fully person. So that's one comment. And then the question, or I guess, like yesterday at the end of Harina, and we get this a lot because we're in New York, and I guess devotees get this a lot everywhere. But I think Ryan was trying to distribute a book to someone, and some guy just comes up, and it's like, don't let these guys fool you. Jesus Christ is the only way. So, what would you do in such a situation? Or what would you recommend to do?
You see, when there's a confrontation, we get this also in the UK and many, many places. When there's a confrontation, I mean, it's no point in getting into an argument. Our approach is, okay, that's fine. For you, Jesus Christ is the personality of Godhead. And I've seen other people handle this in a way that it says, it's wonderful that actually in this material world, somebody has faith in a higher power. It's a wonderful thing. It's actually a rarity in this day and age that somebody actually has some faith in something bigger than themselves. So that's one thing. The second part is that we are only trying to enhance what you already have to the best ability that you can practice your faith. So this process is a spiritual science that actually helps you to better yourself to the topmost ability so you can practice your faith and gain the most benefit from that faith rather than just ritualistically practicing. And so those are the two comments generally we make, because our process is, as Prabhupada has said many, many times, it's the science where there's an experiment, there's a hypothesis, and there are the results. So we find that if you do the experiment, you will find the result also. So try the experiment. Try it for 1 week, try it for 2 weeks, see how you feel. Are you able to better practice your own practice through doing this experiment? The answer invariably would be yes. Like that. And so that's how we would sort of answer that, rather than getting, because we've seen devotees also sometimes get into conflict situation and it doesn't go anywhere. Like that. Anything else to add from the wonderful Sankirtan devotees? Tulsi Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
One of the aspects, like when we are describing Paramatma, the Lord in the heart, we say it's a localized personal aspect. So, I mean, to me, it looks like completely personal. Why this expression is used, localized personal?
Very nice technical question, thank you. Localized personal aspect. Yes. Ultimately, we know that there is no difference between Krishna and Vishnu, Krishna and Narayan. And in his form to actually help us, guide us through the material world and navigate through this entire journey of 8.4 million species of life, he takes a personal interest in us. Remember, he is aloof from this material world. Krishna, he is involved in his pastimes. He doesn't engage with this material world. But his agencies do. When his expansion in terms of Vishnu glancing over the material nature, the energy of Shiva comes across and actually interacts with Prakriti. So the localized aspect is trying to connect with the soul. Actually, the soul should be trying to connect with the localized aspect of Paramatma, but he knows that the soul is part and parcel of the Supreme. It's not different to Krishna. The Paramatma within the heart is trying to guide the jiva to go back to its original constitutional position, having this unique relationship with Krishna is missing very much. Krishna created us during the creation for a purpose. But then some of us, those rascals, I'm talking about myself, I wanted to come here and enjoy by myself, lord it over material nature. But he's missing me because he's missing this interaction that we actually have with him. And so he'll do anything to have us back. And so the only way I can answer your question is that by him trying to connect with us in that personality is trying to guide us back. The moment we turn to him, that's it, done. He knows eventually, ultimately, we're going to go back home, back to Godhead, and that relationship and his entire being is fulfilled. But right now, it's somewhat unfulfilled. That's why he wants us back. Anyone else wants to add anything? Maybe Prabhu, you also had something, Tulsi Prabhu, you also had something on this, or? Okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah? Okay. All right. If that's everything, then we'll finish 4 minutes early. Grantra Srimad Bhagavata Mahapuran ki. Grantra Srimad Caitanya-caritāmṛta Mahapuran ki. Because we covered both of the aspects today. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.